Welcome back, beautiful people. We're your hosts. I'm Jessica,
What's up, boo boos? I'm Brittany.
and you are listening to Mystifying Reality. So, this week, we have the pleasure of speaking about the inner child. And I wanted to start off by reading a little expert about what inner child theory is, and then ending it with a quote before our lovely Brit takes it away. Okay, so your inner child is a part of your subconscious that has been picking up messages way before it was able to fully process what was going on mentally and emotionally. It holds emotions, memories, and beliefs from the past, as well as hopes and dreams for the future. So we're going to let that sink in for a little bit,
hmm
get you guys feeling a little inspired, and hopefully feeling challenged enough to think about what we're going to talk about. And the beautiful quote that I wanted to share with you guys is: so much of the healing of our world begins in healing the inner child, who rarely, if ever, got to come out and play, by Vince Gilman.
Love that.
We're starting off deep, we're starting off
Yes.
serious. Here we are. Take it away,
We're
Britt.
cereal. We're cereal here. We're cereal. What is up, boo boos? Thank you so much for that, Jessica. And it's very true. The inner child is the part of us that allows us to explore. Even in my theory, the inner child is a part of us that exposes what we believe is unlovable about ourselves, but it also shows us what makes us very unique. Now, before we get into this, this is a really deep topic a lot of people don't like to talk about because it requires us looking at our traumas, looking at what we went through with childhood, looking at, the errors of what makes us feel and think the way that we currently do that we don't love about ourselves. And the inner child connects us to every relationship in every area of our life. And understand we have a relationship with everything. It's not just people. We
That's
have a
true.
relationship with money. We have a relationship with food. We have a relationship with substances, with ourselves. So if there's any area of our life that's at a disalignment within ourselves, it's our inner child screaming to us that it really wants us to pay attention to the part of us that needs the love that we so freely give to the world. So, on top of that, I know a lot of people may have heard of the inner child, and you may be thinking, well, I don't believe it's really necessary. I'm an adult, and a lot of us believe. I want to explain to you guys, a lot of us believe that we don't need to do this work. But if you keep trying to manifest, if you keep trying to travel the world and do things to avoid how you feel on the inside, nothing outside of you will ever satisfy you unless you look at the inner child within inside of you and see how it needs to be parent, how it needs to have a friend, how it needs to have a lover, how it needs to have someone that cares for them. And nothing
Oof.
in this world is going to give you the fulfillment the way that your inner child would when you connect to that part of yourself that was not seen and needed to be seen the way that you want to be seen as an adult. So, now, as we go into this inner child, I want to explore a little deeper on the spiritual realm, what the inner child and how it connects to us. Now, what's crazy is that when we are kids, our minds are like sponges. And so the inner child helps us connect to that spirit within us. Because I'm a huge believer that kids are closer to our creator than anybody. I don't care if there's people who believe in religion, who believe in a higher power. Kids are a lot more closer to our creator than we are as adults. That's why they have such innocence. That's why they have such inspiration. That's why they're connected to the spiritual realm and see things we don't see because they understand through the eyes of God how to see life in such a pure, whole, unconditional, loving way. And that's where we need to connect to that part of ourselves again. So, the way the inner child is connected to the spirit and the spirit is energy, it helps this physicality exist. So, I want to share with you guys each age of stage that we go through that connects us to our inner child, but also connects to our chakras that create our belief systems, our limitations, our blockages, but how it also helps us open ourselves up and activate us to be the best version of ourselves while still connecting to the inner child within us. So when you are ages 1 through 7, that is your root chakra. The root chakra is where the pelvis area is. That is where fear is created, and that is how our belief system is created. Now, let's go a little further. You have 8 years old through 14. That is where your sacral chakra is activated. That is where your belly button is. And that is where your feelings and your desires are starting to evolve. That's when you start getting to involve in your self-love or loving other people. You're being activated, when your hormones are kicking in as a teenager. And let me go back into the root chakra, actually, because it is the most important one that we have to heal first, because the root chakra could be blocked by fears, and that creates the limitations towards our stability, towards money, feeling safety, feeling like we have the right to be ourselves regardless if we don't fit society standards. Now, let's go a little further. You have ages 15 through 21. Your solar plexus, that is like where your abdomen is underneath your chest. And that is where your willpower is, your productivity is. And around those ages, that's when we start really feeling such a force, such a confidence to go after life, to create our life. And that is the part of us that when that's blocked, when the sacral is blocked, that's blocked by shame. And that could be through sexual trauma. But when the solar plexus is blocked, it's blocked by guilt, the guilt of wanting more, to be more, to have better. This is why a lot of us have such fears around our confidence, is because we believe our expression and our creativity doesn't deserve to be heard or be seen. So now let's continue to ages 22 to 28. Your heart chakra gets activated. That's where harmony is starting to be created. That's when you want to start building honest connections. Be honest with yourself. Be more vulnerable. And that could be blocked by disappointment. Now, ages 29 through 35, that is where your throat chakra starts to be activated. That's where your creativity is, your truth, but it's blocked by lies. And that's when you get really philosophical. That's when you start getting really curious about, who am I? What do I want? How do I go after things? How do I express my authenticity and my truth? Now you have ages 36 through 42, third eye chakra, which is right here in your forehead, the middle of your forehead. That is where your wisdom is starting to be created. But a lot of people don't understand that your third eye is connected to your intuition, and that could be blocked by illusions, not seeing the truth of who you are, having rose-colored glasses on, believing in this paradox of what we call society that's not really serving us, but thinking that we have to go with the herd. So now let's continue to the last one, ages 43 through 44. The crown chakra, which is pretty much your crown. We all have a crown. That is where your spirituality starts being activated. Now, that could be blocked by ego attachments to this world, attachments to substances, attachments to people, thinking that we are this fleshy body when really is very temporary. Now, the reason why I share all this, you guys could dive deep into seeing in depth the understandings of how going through these certain ages as we get older activate our chakra system. But I believe this is important to understand because your inner child is intertwined with the activation of who you truly are on a soul level in order for you to merge with your physicality to express your true self. And the inner child is the part of us that we deem is the shadow that creates all these limitations and these blockages. And I do have a few videos on my YouTube channel that can help you start doing this inner child healing through my inner child meditation, but also through using your chakras in order to do shadow work. The inner child, it helps you tap into shadow work, which is looking at the parts of yourself that are very egoic, that are very not in tune with spirit, that really give us that God complex that helps us see how to ground ourselves and not just be in a state of always thinking the world revolves around us. Now, to be honest with you guys, this work of healing the inner child, the reason why it's very difficult to walk into this type of journey of self-discovery is because you have to look at parts of yourself that made you feel unworthy, that make you feel like, oh, my parents thought this was bad. Oh, my family thought this wasn't good enough. Oh, I feel rejected. I feel neglected. When we could look at these parts and realize how to accept them with pure love, we can understand that the inner child is not here just to bother us. It's not here to traumatize us. I look at shadows I look at the shadows, what we call our shadow, our ego, as little personalities of our inner child sitting at a dinner table wanting our attention, to talk to us, to let us know what is going on inside you that's making you feel unhappy, depressed, anxious, unlovable. And when you can look at your internal world that way, then thinking that, oh, there's shadows or there's demons or there's things trying to attack me or chase after me, instead of looking at it, just look at it as your inner child trying to bang on a glass window. Be like, I'm here, I'm here. Let me
Ye-
help you. Let me
Yo,
assist you. Let me
yo.
love you.
Pause.
What?
So basically,
Yeah.
you're telling me that I need to put my inner child in its place when she needs to be put in its place, but at the same
Yeah.
time, being gentle enough to give her the love that she maybe has, or attention, or whatever it may be that she is lacking or lacked when she was that age, all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck?
Exactly.
That ain't
I know.
easy.
It's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not easy because it's like it's like your inner child wants attention and love. Your teenage self wants revenge, and your adult self wants redemption. It's like,
Damn right.
how the hell do I
Shit.
calculate all these inner inner parts of me into one? How do I do this? It's very easy when you recognize that it's not about being perfect. It's not about being organized. It's about just feeling. Feel everything that comes to the surface. Because our emotions are just indicators of what is out of alignment within us that's letting us know how to bring it back into alignment. We just need to have compassion for ourselves. That's all it is. See, our spirit is our inner child. And when it feels like it's being neglected, all it wants is that compassion that it's never been given. And look at it. Look at his emotions, for example. So when you look at anger, that's your inner child telling you you're not being respected and you're not setting your boundaries. Doesn't mean
Yeah, your
anger is
voice isn't
bad.
being heard. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So we need all these what we call negative emotions to lead us into these positive emotions because we there's lessons in these emotions. And when we can feel our emotions, we gain the blessing of these lessons. So that's all the inner child is trying to bring us back into remembering who we truly are, which is a sovereign divine being, a purity that's really trying to navigate a world that's so dense and so dark to bring light back into this world. That's all it is. You exist for a reason. But when you allow your inner child to be seen and give it love and compassion as you give yourself love and compassion, you will never have to fear anything in this world. So let's dive a little deeper when it comes to when your inner child is expressing certain emotions. Because here's the thing, when we suppress, here's the thing a lot of people don't understand. When we suppress emotions, they become repressed, and that
That's
creates
facts.
depression. That creates depression. And the crazy thing is, when we don't feel our emotions, our inner child acts out. And that ripples into us doing things that don't serve our higher self, doing substances, saying things we don't mean, manipulating, using, hurting. And like they say, hurt people hurt people. So instead of repressing these emotions, feel them because you learn to love that part of you that was never understood. And when you start understanding yourself, you start understanding the spirit within you. And little do you know that spirit starts seeking more love and you start wanting to give that love to the world rather than staying that hurt person. You start realizing you end up becoming the healer rather than the hurt person. And I'm not saying it's the goal to be of service or to heal everyone. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you could look at the inner little you that's never had the parent that you always wanted, that's never had the friend you wanted, that's never had the part of you to feel confident enough, when you could give that to yourself, you soon could go into the world and recognize you don't need anything or anyone because you have you. And that is the best feeling to be at, is when you know you can not just be independent or hyper independent to the point you think like you don't need to ask for help, but you come to a point where you know how to be vulnerable, you know how to express your boundaries, you know how to give and receive love, but you also are not fearful of how you feel and how you think because you know it deserves to be heard and seen, and you have every right to exist. Go ahead,
So
boo.
can we go through an example with me then,
Yeah, let's do it.
to
Let's
have
do
to
it.
have to have everyone kind of understand where we're at with that.
Yeah,
So obviously I've been doing some inner child work
we all
myself.
do. Facts.
Yeah. If you aren't, get on it. This is your sign. Um, so I was born in Dominican Republic. My father was not there for all of my mother's pregnancy term because he was here trying to get us to come to America. So that already, I would say, is neglect because I didn't really hear his voice.
Yeah.
So then I was born and he kind of really wasn't, he was in and out because obviously he lived here, he had to work, no shade, no. So that's already, I'm seeing that as a little kid as neglect, right? Then boom, I'm 4 and my father goes to DR and gets my mom, but my paperwork
Hmm.
isn't ready yet, so I stay with my grandparents.
Yeah.
So that was like the end of the world for me. My parents left me, and every time I tried to voice it to my grandparents, they're like, "Oh, stop it!" Like whatever. I was shut down. I wasn't really able to explain what I felt, which I still to this
Hmm.
day remember how I felt, and I was 4. That's where we're, you know. And then
Yeah.
now looking up as an adult, I can see where my anger issues towards both of my parents, more a
Yeah.
little bit for my father, is me acting out because of my neglect.
Yeah.
And not even towards my parents, just in general, when I see someone or something that's going to neglect me, or I feel like my needs are not being met, which is a form of neglect, I retaliate, which is what I did when I was little in DR and my parents left me. I
Yeah.
would get many spankings because I just was not having it. I was like, well, the people that created me left me, so fuck everything.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's funny because people say, oh, they're little, they don't understand. Yes, we do. And
We
even
did.
when we're babies, we still can understand. It,
Kids
it
are a
still
lot more
stays with
intelligent
us.
than adults. Yeah.
Exactly, because we're sponges and we take all of that. So
Hmm.
yes, I'm a newborn, but if you're beating my mother and cursing at her and putting her down, that's something that's going to be engraved here. And whether you realize it or not, I can be 22, have a kid, and that's what I'm going to talk to my kid. Maybe that's the way
Yeah.
it's going to come out. Or I'm going to talk to my partner in a bad way, and that's the way it's going to come out. So I just wanted to give that little example because it could be the littlest things that people think, oh, that's nothing. And that's like, to me, that was the biggest thing. I have family members now that tell me because we're Hispanic and so no one's going to share their feelings. But I have family members that tell me now, like, that was a really hard time for your parents. Like, that wasn't easy, but why wasn't that told to me by them at
Yeah.
that time? Because that could have,
Hmm.
I feel like, helped things down the line, you know?
And not only that, with Jessica's story, since she's been doing able to do this inner child healing, she's learned how to not resent her parents, but understand where they were at, the level with the
Yeah.
consciousness that they understood. And she was being able to co-parent herself by recognizing like, yeah, it was hard for them, but now I'm recognizing how to love myself and realize it was hard for me at that time, and having
Yeah.
compassion with how I felt. And the crazy thing I want to share with that too is that when you are neglected as a child in adulthood, that could show in our relationships, because the relationships like really bring out the triggers within us that our inner child
Mm-hmm.
holds, and brings out the best version of ourselves. So that can show being controlling in relationships, that can show as if your emotions are not being heard and your needs are not being met, and you feel like you're being taken advantage of because no one was able to give you that love as a child to be understood. Now you walk into relationships where people are avoidant, And that's how you become so controlling, because you, as a child, nothing was in your control. So you want to control things now for a sense of safety, because you want to prevent what happened in the past happening now. So that's how
Yeah.
the inner child could like intertwine into our adulthood. But now she's been able to see where everyone else was at, but see where she needs to be at for herself. And now she has way better boundaries. She has no regret for being the villain or speaking up for herself, because there's nothing
Period.
wrong with doing what's best for you, since you know better for
Exactly.
you. Now, for me, I want to share is that I remember when I was a kid, and my mom went to work, and my aunt was supposed to watch me, but my aunt ended up leaving me in a whole apartment by myself. So I'm searching around looking for her. And I end up, back in the days when you had those doors you had to be buzzed into, and those are some heavy ass apartment doors. I found a way in my diapers to open up a door, to go down those stairs, to
Oh,
leave
you
the apartment
wild.
building. I'm wild,
Oh,
girl. I'm wild. I even got
oh
myself
shit.
outside, walked up to my babysitter's house up the street in a soaked diaper. And my mom said, that day I knew you had angels with you. She says it as a good thing. I see it as traumatizing, because now when I get into relationships, I believe people I care the most are going to abandon me. And that's why I get really clingy. I get codependent. I get very insecure, very possessive and jealous. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with me. Just means that part of me felt unloved. I was called stupid. I was physically bullied by my sister. I was sexually abused to the point that I have such trust issues now. Like, how can I trust people? And now, in order for me to like heal that inner child within me, sometimes I imagine myself hugging that little part of me, hugging her and saying, it's not your fault. Everything you went through, if anything, it doesn't make you who you are. It makes you a person who can be a better version from that, and know how to build better trust, and know what love really is, and not have shame in the love that you have to give. And that's the way you have to see it, because when we don't look at those traumas and learn to feel them and forgive them, they will ripple out and acting out and being rebellious and doing substances, and giving ourselves to people that don't have pure intentions for us. This is why inner child healing is so important, because you could recognize the psychological damage is caused, but you could recognize how to redefine that story for you and not allow it to define you as a person. Because I'm a huge believer that we come into this earth with our soul choosing these hardships, but choosing these blessings, because it knew that we were capable to overcome these sad moments, these downfalls, these
Yeah.
traumas, because we are powerful enough to love ourselves, to be our own parent, our own cheerleader, our best friend. And that's the whole point. I feel like when our soul chose this, and we learn to heal that inner part of ourselves, we will understand, like, damn, that part of me never died. It just resurrected a new version of me that's more powerful. So those are two examples of
Sheesh.
how the inner child can actually affect our adulthood. And let me get into money, because I believe money is a really big thing. And the way, like I said, we have a relationship with everything. And I believe people think safety comes from having a lot of money, but money it rules the world, but it gives us a sense of stability. But we have to understand that our fears and our belief systems were created from the projections of our own parents and our own family. And that's our inner
Mm-hmm.
child picking all that up. So when we do inner child healing and we go through our chakras and we feel our emotions, we start to understand when we could face our guilt, our shame, our biggest fears, they're not as scary as we think. They're just projections of other people that we have to transmute. And I have to say that we have to be the one in the family to transmute all these energies, because it's not our responsibility. But at the end of the day, you are powerful enough and courageous enough to say, this is not meant for me. I'm meant for more and better. So I'm going to do what I can to give myself that love that I never felt before, and recognize, like, this doesn't serve me. Now I have the right to change it as an adult. So please understand, you guys, you may have been born poor, born in a broken home, born not being loved, but it will be your fault if you don't do this work to love yourself, to be fulfilled, to feel abundant. And I say that with love, because even though what we went through wasn't our fault, It is our responsibility to take accountability for our life as we get
Yeah,
older, because we
exactly.
have a lot of people in our adulthood that blame their parents still, that blame their past, that are still stuck on things that happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when they were still the kids. And it's like, but your life is the way that it is because of the choices you made so far. So it's important to understand that you may not want to feel that pain. You may not want to relive those moments, but when you allow yourself to do so, you will never, ever have to deal with them again. And I'm not saying they won't pop up again, but I am saying is that they won't have that much power over you the more that you keep reliving it, so you can heal it and not have those emotions take you. Because when you don't allow those physical circumstances to dismantle your spirit, that's when you're healing. That's when you learn your power. And that's when you can really find your joy and allow that inner child to shine so bright with no fucking shame. So that's what I
That's a
want to say.
fact. What's that quote that says you can't control what happens or what people do to you, but what you can control is how you react and what you do after. So always
Exactly.
remember that. And I did also
Mm-hmm.
want to say, you know, um, we talk about heavy things and our own different traumas and what we've been through, but please understand that trauma can be as little as you falling off a bike when you were 3, and
Thank you for
it can
sharing
it
that.
can
Thank
it
you.
can resonate as you being 30 and not being able to take risks because you're scared. Like
Exactly.
it's all on you to find out what those, you know, inner child impacts were. And they could be good. We're not saying that everything that happened when you were little is bad. But you for sure want to look at the bad things or what you deem to be upsetting to you or impactful, and see how now in the present that affects you, what you can change, what you can work with. Because all we're trying to do here is say, yes, we grow up, and yes, there's stages in our lives and we have different ages, but we still stay with those people. Whether we morph into a new person, I'm still that 5-year old who's traumatized because my parents left me, or 4-year old.
Mm-hmm.
You fall off that bike, you're still that 3-year old that knows how bad it hurt at that moment, and you see a bike and you start sweating. So it's we we we
Facts.
keep we keep evolving like a butterfly. We start off as a caterpillar, go into metamorphosis. I think that's what it's called. Don't come for me.
Metamorphosis. Yeah.
Metamorphosis. And then end up being a butterfly, but you remember all the stages, you remember all the steps, you remember where you came from. And that's
Mm-hmm.
very important because that's a foundation of building blocks to who you are today. And so that's why it's really important to understand your past. A lot of kids I know, like I mentioned, I studied a little of psychology. So, when we're little, we see things and we hear things that we may not even remember or that we suppress. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes we may not even know things happen to us until we're picking our brain, like what's going
Yeah.
on, or we're
Or
triggered by.
like we feel fear when there's people around us and
Exactly.
stuff. And it's
Or
like, why do I feel
energies that
this
you're not
way?
okay sitting with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So just be mindful of that, and
Yeah.
sit with that a bit.
Thank you for sharing that, because she's right. Trauma could be, being in school and the teacher saying, is there something wrong with you because you can't solve a math problem in front of the class? Like, it could be small little things like that. What we're saying here is inner
Which is
child
not okay.
healings. It's not okay.
If,
It's
if a
absolutely,
teacher
I've
says
been,
that, call me, I'll
yeah.
slap it.
That happened to me as a kid. I used to get
Oh
bullied
hell
all
no.
my life. I've been through so much shit. But like I said, you guys, it could be very small. What the inner child healing is about, whatever makes you feel uncomfortable and not safe within your body, is what needs to be recognized and give attention to the point that you feel it and work through it, accept it, forgive it, and then you can move forward. And if it happens again, you'd be like, oh, that doesn't bother me when people make fun of me. Oh yeah, it could be a klutz and I could have a blonde moment, but it doesn't mean I'm stupid. It's just helping you understand how not to sit with those old emotions that are creating stagnation within you, that's holding you back from going after your dreams, from overcoming your fears, from accepting love and receiving it. That's all we're saying. So it's all about, the inner child is all about recognizing the good things in your life and bringing those best versions of you out, but recognizing what you feel is unlovable, loving those parts of yourself, because that part of yourself is going to help repel you beyond your own insecurities and fears and pain and everything. That it's learning how to love all parts of you, even the parts of
Yeah.
yourself that you think are not acceptable to life. That's all it
And
is.
remember, that's also breaking generational
No
walls
curses.
and
Yeah.
curses, because how you were brought up is not necessarily how you have to bring up your children and how you start a
Hmm.
family. And it all comes from you doing the work so that it's not then copied on later on in life. And don't get me wrong, there's going to
It
be
creates
things and
patterns.
skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be things that you have like no control over. If one day you lash out and you're like, holy shit, like this is like, I feel like I'm a little kid right now. And I remember when this
You're
happened.
being
And that's
triggered,
okay. Exactly. And that's okay because we're human. We're
and
allowed
you're
to make
becoming aware of
mistakes.
it. You're starting to
Exactly.
become aware of it.
But as
Yeah.
long as you point it out and you're like, I do not like that part of me. I did not like that when it was done to me. And I'm definitely not going to bring that energy on to someone that I created and I loved. And that's when you begin to do that change. So it's really important to point out these things and understand yourself to the best ability that you can so that we can
Hmm.
continue to build little humans that are going to be better for this world instead of the opposite. So just
Exactly.
wanted to say
She's
that.
she's very right. You become the example for the next generation you bring into this life. So you want to take accountability for what you are unaware of within yourself, because you can't change what you're not aware of. But once you become aware of it, then you could change it. And that's where accountability comes in. Like I was saying in the last podcast how I was a cheater and all that, and I'm realizing my dad was a cheater, my mom was a cheater. Do I really want to be like them? Do I really want to be like that? Do I really like now? I don't even drink as much. Like, do I really want to drink? Do I really want to smoke? Because I was peer pressured. Started recognizing these patterns of projections that I made my identity, and start realizing this is not serving my reality. So I had to change my personality, find myself through this healing, and then become the example of someone I really want to be guided by. And it's up to you to stop the patterns, but it's up to you to
Yeah,
love yourself enough to recognize that you deserve not to live the same way that you were grown up into, you know?
exactly.
So,
Woo.
but ooh, this was serial right here. I love this one. This went by quick too. Already 32 minutes.
I know we be talking and just, straight gems, straight gems. You got to make sure and sit down with yourself and like really respect yourself enough to care to know these
Mm-hmm.
things and find out what they are and what it means
Yeah.
to you.
And don't blame the world, you guys, because if you become a victim to everything that happened to you, you would never become courageous enough to be the victor of your life, because you are your own hero.
Exactly.
But you could be your own enemy when you keep blaming the world when it's not the world's fault. It, yeah, like I said, what happened to you wasn't your fault, but it will end up being your fault if, because you become what you resent. So
Exactly.
you definitely want to face everything that you resent so you no longer have to hold on to that burden, that disappointment that had nothing to do with you. So, but
Yep.
that's
That's a
that's all
fact.
I wanted to share. Like, thank you guys for listening to this, because I know it was a tough one. Like I said, if you want to start doing this healing, I have an inner child meditation. I'll link at the below this
Go
podcast.
take it. Go take it, guys. Go.
Yeah, it's a little deep, but it's going to make you recognize how to tap into a love that you never felt for yourself before. And we all deserve that, because we are taught to neglect ourselves in this world as we become adults and don't want to see our own heartaches. But when you're able to, do this work and give that love to yourself, it hits different. It hits way
Yeah.
different. It really
On
does.
top of the world, on top of the world, nobody could take that away from you. Just remember that.
Facts, facts. Don't be scared to dive deep, you guys.
And with that being said, guys, remember you guys can follow us on Instagram at Mystifying Reality Podcast, or you can email us at Mystifying Reality Podcast at Gmail. Thank you for those 31 follows on Instagram. You heard we getting
Facts.
up there. We're aiming for 100. Let's get it. And thank you for our listeners on podcasts. Please give us a rating. Please listen. Tell your mamas, tell your friends, tell yourselves. I don't know who you got to tell, but tell somebody. And just share it so that we can get those listens and we can get those ads and we can, grow and bring more to you guys, because we want to really expand and be able to provide more. I do want to
Absolutely.
end with a little task if you're up for it. You can think about it, write it, whatever you want. Talk to yourself. It's up to you. But I really would like for you to speak, or however you want to do it, whatever form, to your inner child, and really have a conversation with them and tell yourself how much you love yourself. And in areas where you needed somebody, your version of you now should go and hug them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I asked for you to do. And give us feedback. If you did it, let
Yeah,
us know how you felt. We are
definitely.
always willing to hear and speak to you guys and have conversations. So, go ahead and do that
Mm-hmm.
little.
And we would love to share your guys' story too. Like I wanted to add to that. Like she said, look in the mirror and talk to yourself the way that you always needed to be talked to and loved, and hug that part of you. But also write your little self a letter. Write them a letter about how thankful you are that they made it this far and helped you get to where you are today. You know? Maybe that part of you really needs that. So, and if you want to share that with us, we would love to share it on the podcast with your permission,
For real.
just to see your growth and just to see, how proud of you are. We want to celebrate that with you. So, other than that, you guys, like Jessica said, you could go follow us. All that information will be down in the description box below. Please do follow. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that could help all of you guys with your mental health, your emotional awareness, so you can become aware of these parts of yourself, so you can start making the changes that you really want to make for yourself. So other than that, you guys, love you
Yes.
so much. There's only
Thanks
love
for listening. Thanks for listening.
See you on the next one. Her little inner child
See
sounds
ya.
so cute.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Bye, you guys.